I mean, bankruptcy, desperation. I go back to work for people that I had hired and trained in the business, 10 years ago. It was almost like God said, I know I took away all your crap, your multi-million dollar houses, your, five supercars, but you're still not humble enough.
Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast, The Jeff Heilman Project. I'm Jessica Heilman, and with me is Jeff Heilman. And we have a special guest on today's episode. And the reason why I'm not saying your name yet, sir, is because I don't know the story of how the two of you met. And I would love for you to recap. How did you two meet?
Well, that's we'll have some fun with that for sure. But I want to make an introduction first for Jeff Bush. So Jeff Bush, welcome. We are so grateful. We've been talking about doing this type of thing for a long time, and we've done back and forths on our own content, other people's content. We've had hundreds of offline conversations about everything from business to travel to Ferraris, and to our both of our fangirling over Mr. Ohrenclaff down in Encinitas. So we've had quite a bit of time over what has been almost 20 years. I think it's 17 and a half years and counting since we first met. But we have, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, a very successful, multiple business building, real estate investor, world traveler, and now toting Ferrari Club member with us today, a good friend of mine since 2007, actually. And a resident of Southern California in Murrieta, the owner of Hawk Ranch. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Jeff Bush.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jessica. Excited to be on and share some time with you guys today. It's pretty awesome.
We have been looking forward to this for a while, and you just got back from Italy. So let's take a segue for a minute and talk about, what was it like? The purpose for this podcast, by the way, is to bring the humanities, art, sculpture, architecture, music, food, travel, design, to the entrepreneurship community who, for the most part, works too much, doesn't take enough time off, and we're trying to provide a stress relief, an antidote to that. So can you talk to us a little bit about what it was like to go through Modena and the Lamborghini factory and the Ferrari factory, and I mean, just kind of an excerpt of what you shared with me over the last couple of days. It's so exciting, and then we'll get into some of the questions about how you got there. But let's talk about your vacation that you just got back from.
So, first of all, I went to like 30 cities, went to 3 different countries that spoke 3 different languages. I took trains, buses, boats, first class or business class airfare, and I probably took 400 or 500 pictures. So I could talk about this trip for hours. So I'll try to narrow it down to the highlights. I'm still in shock of everything that I saw. I mean, you're talking 30 days in Italy doing 3 to 4 events per day. So I did 120 things, and it's hard to decide which one was the best because it was so much and so good. And the fact that I'm 52 years old and I've never been before, that's a whole nother thing, the story of, I always wanted to go to Italy, but I'm 13-hour flight. I don't really want to go that bad. Let me go visit all 50 states in America first. So I've traveled hundreds of times, but all inside the United States, Mexico, the Bahamas. I've never been to Europe, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say. Most people that have some time and some money and are somewhat cultured go to Europe once in their 30s or 40s. And here I am, 52 years old. So first time.
You also spent some time working, by the way, just to let yourself off the hook.
I was working hard, but anyways, me and my wife, the only reason we never went is because we don't like long flights. I do not like 13-hour flights, and we dreaded it. We're like, it's probably not worth it. I don't really want to go, but someday I want to go to Italy and see the Ferrari factory. That was really the only thing that was a bucket list. I have to do this. So when we went over there, whatever, the first thing that was really interesting is we spent $7,000 on 2 plane tickets. I found a great ticket broker, and we got business class. So we leave LAX at 9:00 at night. And by 11 o'clock at night, I was asleep. And when I woke up, we were touching down in London. So the whole 30 years of like, this flight's going to be horrible was absolutely, the flight was nothing.
Yeah.
Now
Wow.
going coach, there's no freaking way I'm flying to Italy coach.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A $900 ticket and sitting upright I would have shot myself. And my wife hates flying too, or we would have had to be taking Valium like the other people, right? So anyways, the flight was no big deal. We landed in London. I think it was 10 and a half hours over there. And then we had a three-hour layover, but we're in the first class American Airlines, British Airways lounge. So you're sitting there eating and watching TV. My wife's having a glass of champagne. So the 3-hour layover didn't really suck like some do. And then it was like 2 hours over to Milan. So the flight was like nothing because we went business class. I think that was like crucial. So whatever, $7,000 for two tickets. That wasn't bad. First class was $12,000 a piece, 24,000. Like that would have hurt a little bit more. I might have put that trip.
That's more than the bumper on your car.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. The bumper was insured. And there's another story about insurance. No. So anyways, I mean, Italy was amazing. We started at Lake Como, we get a private boat to take us around Lake Como. There's George Clooney's house, and then, there's Switzerland and the Swiss Alps and just beautiful water, 1,000-year-old castles on the lake. And I grew up in Southern California and I had a house on the water, and you think you've seen it all, but then you go over there and you're like, oh my God, 1,000-year-old 30,000 square foot castle. There's Mussolini's old house. There's Hitler's, the place he came over and used, and Switzerland. And you're like, oh my God, life is so much bigger than what I've seen. People keep asking me, was the trip fun? And I go, fun is not the right word. It was enlightening. This trip was enlightening. The language, the food, the culture, the buildings, the lifestyle. It was just so drastically different. It wasn't until I got in my 40s that I could have gone for a month, because I wanted to go for a month. I didn't want to go for 10 days, So anyways, I guess that's part of the reason I put it off so long, so we can go and.
Well, and how did Tiffany deal with it? Because I know she doesn't like to fly for super long time, but she like a champ stepped up and dealt with the 26 hours round trip in the air. How was her enjoyment of the trip for the month that you guys were over there?
She absolutely loved it. At the end of the trip, I said, if you didn't go with me, because she was debating whether she really wanted to go. So just so you know, I was going by myself. I wasn't waiting any longer. I was going to go by myself. But can you imagine missing what we just saw in 30 days? She said, absolutely not. Oh my God, I would have missed all of it. From the Ferrari factory to, riding around on the bus with 10 multimillionaires that are all own Ferraris. Just that in itself was interesting, right? You got a lot of egos on the bus. What's that movie, The Train, where you're trying to figure out who was the murderer on the train? The Orient Express.
Murder on the Orient Express. Yeah.
Murder on the Orient Express. We kept saying that on the bus because it was funny. There was so many big money ego people on the bus. Some of them own multiple Ferraris and multiple homes, and just seeing us all get along and respect each other. And I had every, different races, people from Seattle, from Palm Springs, black, white, Asian. It was just such an eclectic group of people, but we all had something in common. We loved Italian cars. We all owned.
Well, and you had a legacy experience. Tell us a little bit about Pininfarina and your conversation at the Farina Mansion here just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the highlight of the trip for the whole 30 days was a couple of conversations with a couple of different people that just hit me really hard just because it was so emotional. And one of them was Mr. Pininfarina. They designed 18 different Ferraris. His dad started the company, but he was telling us the story. We're in his showroom of all the cars he had designed and all this success. And he says, yeah, my dad started the company. And when my dad died, my older brother took over the company as CEO, and I was just behind the scenes. Like, I like to draw and design cars and make them pretty, but I'm an engineer. I don't like people. I did not want to be the CEO of the company. And I think he said the day that they were unveiling the F40 famous Ferrari that they had designed, his brother was all excited and was rushing to get to work and got killed on a Vespa scooter on the way to work.
Wow.
He died. And this kid, his younger brother, said, I had to take over as CEO. And I'm thinking, oh, you had to. It's so funny in Italy where the generational businesses still happen. You have an obligation to take over grandpa's business. It's not a question of what you want to do with your life. It's like, you're running Pininfarina, dude. Like you're third generation. So they kind of step up to run these companies in family heritage because it means so much to them. They're so passionate, and they saw their grandpa do it, and then their dad, and now they're. So yeah, and so we, after he showed us a tour and told us all this history, all of us started clapping. And dude, the guy started crying. He's 60 years old. Granted, the Italians are pretty emotional, and I'm not. I'm German. I don't cry a lot, but I saw so many grown men cry in Italy. I'm like, God, they're full of emotion. This is hilarious. Another thing very different from America, right? But 60-year-old man crying, and he was crying because he was thinking about his dad and thinking about his brother that got killed and his journey. And then he was talking about how they lost the Ferrari account 5 years ago because Ferrari wanted to start designing their cars in-house and didn't want designed by Pininfarina on the side of their car anymore. And he said that's why Ferrari is losing in F1. They don't have as good of a wind tunnel as we have. We do a wind tunnel that checks when the car goes sideways, how much wind's hitting it. Ferrari only measures the wind from the front. That's why they're losing in F1. And I'm like, oh, Pininfarina just dissed Ferrari on camera. I was laughing because just all the emotion and passion and.
Well, you mentioned too about the gondola ride and how the pilots for the gondolas were talking back and forth for 20 or 30 minutes while you guys are riding, and they couldn't give a rip about who's got a Rolex or how much money you make or what you do for a living. They couldn't care less about that stuff. Talk a little bit about the cultural significance of great design or being a great gondola pilot, but doing it in community as a group. And with an emphasis on the people versus maybe title or status.
I mean, when you look around these countries, we were in Italy, we were in France, the south of France, like Nice, Monaco, and Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival. We spent a lot of time in Cannes, and Barcelona, Spain. So the Spanish, right? And the one thing that was very true about all three of them, Italy first place, Spain second, France was probably a distant third, was it's all about the conversation. Life is about conversation with friends. And first thing conversation, second thing food, and third place wine, drinks. It's about conversation, food, and wine. That's like top priority. I don't care if you have a blue Fiat 500 or a white one, or you have the Lancia, all the weird cars over there. Peugeots are still popular, the French car. Dude, it's not about what kind of car you drive. I mean, they look good. They're into fashion. They're all dressed really nice. So I imagine the way you look and present yourself. They always see the Americans. They're like, oh, look, another American. He's got tennis shoes on. They're like, that's not cool. Like leather Ferragamos walking around on 1,000-year-old cobblestone streets. Very common. The Americans, they spot us because they're like, look at that idiot's got tennis shoes on. Right? So they're dressy, like in both Italy and Spain, even more so in the south of France. So the one thing I noticed culture shock was, oh my God, conversation. These people never shut up. The gondola ride was a half an hour long, and the two gondola guys are talking to each other, and we're like having this nice, quiet, romantic rowing through the canals of Venice, Italy. And these guys are just so loud Italians, loud and with their hands and their mouth, and they're singing. And I'm like, dude, what did you guys have to talk about for 40 minutes? You never took a breath, and all you are is co-pilots of a gondola. I'm like, it was just shocking to me that they had so much to talk about, just funny, just different culture. But they were happier than I was,
Yeah.
Me and my wife were like, when's this thing over? This is kind of nice, but like we're over it, but they're just laughing, smiling, yelling, singing. It just seemed like they learned how to enjoy life more and be in the moment and not be in the future. That's one thing about the Italians and the Spaniards. It's like they're in the moment and they're enjoying every bit of it. And appetizers, tapas in Spain, and we're going to do appetizers, then we're going to do dinner. And it's just all about, family conversations. So that's the enlightenment part I got out of this trip more than the fun part, just seeing it all, Food I never tasted before. I'd put something in Spain in my mouth and go, dear God, what is that? Like, I've never had a taste even close to that. In Italy, I always hear about the food and you're like, wow, the pizza's like really plain. Like I thought, go to Italy, this thing's going to explode in your mouth with flavor. Not at all. Everything's like barely any sauce, big lumps of cheese, and but everything's so fresh and homemade, and it tastes so good because it's like simple. I always thought it would be like more extravagant,
Sure.
So anyways,
what about France? Was the food more extravagant in France, or was it about the same?
Yeah, I mean Tiffany had escargot, who they're famous for their snails. I mean, I'm not a big French food guy. It's just so rich and so
Yeah.
like over the top. Like it wasn't my thing. Tiffany loved it. But the people of France are definitely like France. I mean, I was in the south of France where the billionaires hang out with their boats in Monaco. There's 13,000 millionaires in Monaco and 130 billionaires, and the whole country is less than a mile circle. Think about that.
Jeez.
13,000 millionaires because no taxes. So the big boats that roll in, there's no federal or state tax. So if you can establish residency there, that's why there's so many. But so it was first class. I mean, the south of France, I grew up in spending time in Newport Beach around 50, $100 million boats. The south of France made Newport Beach look poor. And I didn't think I'd ever say that in a lifetime. It made Newport Beach look like these guys are in poverty. I mean, there was boats rolling in. Now, what I didn't realize is the Monaco Yacht Show was the following week after we left.
Right.
So now I know why I saw so many nice boats. They were rolling in early for the Monaco once a year yacht show. But I saw a boat. I'm like, Tiffany, I've seen a lot of boats. That boat right there is the biggest, nicest private yacht I've ever seen. Can you read the name on the back? And so she read it to me. I Googled it. It was a Saudi Arabian prince who paid 300 million for the boat back in 2017. I'm like, 300 million? Holy crap. And he's just cruising into Monaco. And I heard later that there's a boat that follows him. So all of his servants have to go in the boat behind him and it follows him. Only his family is allowed on the 11 estate room main ship. He has his whole crew follow in another boat. And then when they dock and get off the boat, then the cleaning crew can come in and go about the boat. I'm like, that's kind of
Wow.
next level wealth, right? That's like the billionaires of the world going to south of France. The billionaires of the world don't go to Newport Beach to park. They just don't. That's not like a stop on the world tour with the yacht. But south of France, oh my God, like it was fascinating,
Wow.
So
So
yeah.
I'm interested because part of the reason why we're all friends is that we're all very observational. And so what I'm hearing from you, Jeff, is that you were like in this permanent state of observation while you
Oh
were
yeah,
there. Like, how do you
absolutely.
feel like this experience that you had with this, this opulence and this different culture, like how do you feel like that's going to like impact maybe the things that you do moving forward, your businesses, your ranch, your home? Is it going to add anything to? Has it given you anything to necessarily maybe think about, or a different world now point of view for how you're going to apply the lessons or the things that you saw while you were over in that country, all those countries?
I think that the one thing I took home that I'm going to try to hold on to is trying to be in the moment a little bit more and not always be in the future and not always be planning. Just enjoy yourself, and good family, good food, good conversation. It can be a lot simpler and I can get a lot more enjoyment out of life without this big lie of America that you got to have all the stuff. I mean, I got a lot of stuff and I got more than I ever need, but I think bringing that back and the culture of we go to an area that's 100 years old in America and we go, oh, look at this old, building, and I was in a hotel room in Venice that was built in the year 700 and
Wow.
the floor was like this. I'm like, hey, honey, you notice how we're walking uphill in our hotel room? This is weird. Like the floor's not level. And we peek out the window and we look down. There's the canal. We're on the canal of Venice, looking
Wow.
at the gondolier, hearing the singing. I'm like, what a cool spot. But I asked the hotel guy, I go, dude, our floor's like really not level. He's all, dude, you're in Venice. Your hotel room was built in the year 700. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
that's why. That makes sense. And he goes, Venice was all built on the ocean with wood, and the wood never hits the oxygen, so it calcified. Dude, that wood is holding up Venice for like 1,000 years in the salt water. Isn't that crazy? Like, and then they all built these houses lifted up, and then later on they decided to build all the bridges. We want to go a bridge here so we can go to Sally's house, a bridge over here so we can go to Tom's house. Originally, they were all isolated islands. Yeah, another thing I learned in Venice, which was really interesting, the tour guide, she says, I'm not Italian, I'm Venetian. I'm like, oh, there's some pride in that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, we are Venetians. We were going to get bombed and taken over by some crazy people that were coming to invade. and they knew they weren't going to make it. So they said, we had to decide whether we're going to join France or Italy. And they go, screw France, we're joining Italy. So Venetians are their own people, and they joined Italy just for protection. But they kind of have this heritage of being proud that they're Venetian. They're not Italian. Almost like Sicily. I'm Sicilian. I'm not Italian. I may live in Italy, but I'm Sicilian.
Right.
I guess it'd be like I'm American. I don't know. I don't come out and say
A
I'm
New Yorker. It's like you're saying you're a New
Californian.
Yorker.
There you go. A New Yorker is a better example.
Yeah.
But all those New Yorkers are Italian, right? That's all that's said. So, yeah, okay from Italy with that.
They might be Italian, but they live in New York. Yeah.
I'm married to an Italian from New York, so I could say that. But we don't really go around bragging how we're Californian, and that's different than we're not American. I mean, it's just whatever. It's interesting. Venice.
So you didn't answer my original question on how you two met.
So I'll tell you my side of the story, and then Jeff Bush can tell you his side. So I tried. The Jeff Heilman Project is really about community. It's about getting together with our friends and talking about winning and success, and just kind of the huddle in between the plays on the field where we go and get beat up and try our offensive maneuvers and try to build our businesses. And so in 2006, I started a weekly conference call called the Legacy Leadership Mastermind Group. And there were 4 founding members. It was David Fetterman, Dwayne Hood, Gary Weiss, and Rob Wineland, who I just met Rob. I knew everybody else for about 10 years. And we did that call for 4 years. And that call, to give you an idea, Jeff, I did not have the money to pay the $430 a month for the conference bridge that we used for that. And that was just verbal. That wasn't Zoom or anything. And there was no high-speed internet, so we couldn't do video conferencing like we're doing right now. And that call grew, and it would kind of grow and then shrink and then grow and then shrink. And we had the same 4 guys for about 4 years. And then at some points, we'd have 20 or even 30 people on the phone. The trouble was that we didn't have a common purpose. It wasn't an investment group or a real estate investment trust or anything like that. We didn't have a core purpose for where the call was going. It was just kind of a hangout. And so after 4 years, I'm like, I can't do the $400 a month anymore. And I'm just going to end this because it's not going anywhere. And I couldn't see what to do with it. But from that, I started moderating these calls. And then from the calls, we had an offsite, kind of like what you would think of as like a mastermind group today, where you would pay, $5,000 or $10,000 to be part of a mastermind group of 20 or 30 people. And the facilitator would handle all your meals and set up your travel arrangements, and then you would meet 3 or 4 times a year, and you'd have weekly calls and all that stuff. Well, I was trying to do that, but I wasn't trying to monetize it because I didn't know that there was a monetization factor to it. I was just trying to get successful people together, and we did this one offsite. And I paid for plane tickets for people that couldn't afford it. I paid for food. We did it at my house. I kicked my wife out for a couple of days to go to grandma's and take the kids with her so that we had a place to host, I think, 13 or 14 people. And from that, I hired 2 professional speakers, one that I paid directly, and then one that I paid for his airplane travel from Des Moines, Iowa, Pella, Iowa, which was Jeff Bush's brother, David Bush. And I didn't know David that well. I met him through Todd Galdi because he had a coaching relationship with Todd. And Todd said, "Hey, I've got a coach in the mortgage business. His name's David Bush, and he would probably do a speaking bit." So I called David and I said, "Well, I don't have any money to pay you, but here's what I can do. I can pay for your plane ticket." And we had a really nice king size bed. We had this $10,000 king size bed. And David's a big guy, so I'm like, "You can sleep on my $10,000 king size bed, and I'll pay for your plane ticket. And if you do that, will you come and do an hour to an hour and a half? We'll feed you, we'll house you." And you'll get some association with some good guys and maybe be able to sell your coaching business to some of the folks that are coming in from out of town. And so we did this weekend in October of 2000. I want to say 7. I think it was 2006 or 2007. Must have been 2007 because we were living in Gilroy.
I was too busy having kids. My whole 20 years is a blur. So.
And then from that,
I know the feeling.
David and I built a little rapport and relationship from that. And then David calls me in like January, February of 2008. And he goes, "My brother Jeff is going through a rough time. He could use a friend right now. And it would be really cool if you would just I don't know what your policy is on it, but it would just be cool. You seem like a really approachable person that's trustworthy. Could you please reach out to my brother Jeff and just, just put your arm around him and just be a good Christian and encourage him, right? And I'll let you decide how much of that season of your life you want to divulge, Jeff. But he was, Jeff was his father of four, married to the same gal for 30 plus years, Tiffany, who we've had breakfast, lunch, and dinner together dozens of times. And I'm actually heading out to go hang with you this weekend, actually looking forward to that as well, down in Paso Robles area. So, and we met and we started talking, and it seems like you and I have talked at least every month, if not every week, pretty much ever since, for like 15, 16 years. Now that's my side of the story. What did you see on the receiving end of that, Jeff?
Hey everybody, this is Jessica. I'm so excited to offer to you this new service and this ability that you have to text in your questions, comments. Maybe you have some situations that you'd love for Jeff and Jessica to try to tackle along with you. You can text us now at 203-646-1472. Your phone carrier may have standard rates that apply, it being a text, but this is a free service from us to you in which we would like to participate with you in an ongoing conversation about how we can help and what we can possibly do for you. Looking forward to hearing from you soon.
Yeah, I do remember that my brother introduced me to you. I didn't know it all started with just a phone call, but you're right. I don't think we ever met in person for years. We were talking on the
It's a
phone
long time before we met in person.
just kind of talking about business and wives and kids and just ups and downs. And like I was in a real down time, at that point. So yeah, that was God seems to send you the people that you need at certain times of your life, right? Because I'm a self-starter. I work by myself real well. I've built big companies and I got to be social enough to hire salespeople and coach them and motivate them. So I can do that. But when I'm by myself, or at that particular time, I made like, I don't know, $2.5 million, 3 years in a row, 04, 05, 06.
Yeah, during the good times in the mortgage business.
The houses, the cars, the boats, the motorhomes, just living large.
Well, you bought a dream house at the beach, you had a dream house in the mountains, and you had to move from those into a much smaller setting. And I remember walking into your rental house, seeing the furniture from the big house. I'm like, oh, this is how he used to live, right? this monstrous credenza and beautiful dressers, and I mean the finest of everything in your life. And then you're living in this house, to where you had 2 grand pianos.
Oh my gosh.
This huge dually truck in the driveway. And then I came down, I did see the house up on the hill in 2014.
From hero to zero, and just get into a totally different mindset of like, well, at least I got a couple $100,000 worth of furniture, and then it doesn't fit in my house, and then you pay storage, and you realize your $200,000 furniture is worth about 20 grand used. Oh. It's like it's just so sad, right? Yeah. The whole storage business like is built on this, right?
It is.
You store on the way in, you store on the way out,
and your stuff's worth nothing when you're done with it. Yeah. But then 2007, you pivot, you get clear vision, your bankruptcy's done. And you're like, okay, I don't want to go into the mortgage business anymore, but I understand the advertising angles and the data and the analytics and the offers around these direct mail pieces. And you'd understood direct mail. You'd been selling direct mail. You had purchased direct mail to keep your own business afloat. And then you pivot to enter in stage right. 2008, you start working for that one couple. And then you start looking at Overflow Works and building that. How did you make that transition of like, starting over with nothing, living in a small quarters, but you did it. You turned the corner, and then what happened in like 2008, 2009?
I mean, bankruptcy, desperation. I go back to work for people that I had hired and trained in the business, 10 years ago. It was almost like God said, I know I took away all your crap, your multi-million-dollar houses, your, 5 supercars, but you're still not humble enough, Jeff. I got to dish it out a little bit more. I think we got to take the last lick of ego out of you, because, dude, then I had to go to work for people that I hired So I bounced around for 2 or 3 years, and then I got screwed over. They're like, we'll give you ownership in the company after a year. And on 1 year anniversary, I'm like, okay, give me my 33% ownership. Oh, me and my wife changed our mind. I'm like, changed your mind? I just put a year in, all based on having ownership in this company.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me after getting screwed around by 2 or 3 employers that were supposed to be owner, joint venture, earned equity, all that crap. People take advantage. It's sad. And I was desperate. I'm glad today that I had a salary and could feed my children because I had nothing left. They took everything. Um, so anyways, I then realized that, okay, it's time to go again and time to rebuild. So yeah, quit that job
and you started, you kind of had
start
this,
Overflow. I
this,
think it's 2010.
2010. And then when did you know that you had it? Because by 2014, you were expanding. It snowed in Murrieta that Christmas, and I came down and you showed me around, and you're like, I think I'm going to get the other side of the hallway in this office rental that we've got here. And I'm going to get another 10 desks, I think. And
Yeah.
I mean, by 2014, did you know you had it, or were you still not really sure?
Funny, I just told Tiffany, I go, my first year at Overflow, when it was just me, I had no overhead. I sold $1 million worth of advertising, and we made 150 grand. My first year in business, never borrowed any money, didn't have a dollar to start the company. Dude, that company was funded. You want to talk about bootstrap? Like, hey, customer, can you please mail in your check? Because I got to pay for the last guy's job.
Yeah,
it was like
I still
worse
got
than
to. I got to
bootstrap.
pay the printer for the last guy we sold last week. Yeah.
So yeah, we borrowed no money. We had no money. I don't even know how that even happened. I mean, it was a God thing. It was God, it was a miracle but we made 150 grand the first year in business, which is not too common. Most businesses don't make any money the first year. They usually lose. But because I was just telling her, hey, Hawk Ranch, we did $1 million last year. Why aren't we making money? Oh, that's right. We got a $500,000 payroll. We got like 5 people on payroll doing all the work, selling, we're paying commissions. But that first year in business, at my business, it was just me, and it was lean and mean. I mean, it was all dependent on me. I sold everything, but I kept all the money. I had no employees. It was crazy, but that got 100 grand in the bank so I could go hire some employees, go get a building, put some furniture in, buy some computers, and that got it going. So yeah, you're talking, that was like 2010.
Okay.
And then by 2014, I probably had 10 employees. We're doing $3 million a year in business, and maybe we're making 400 grand, maybe 500 grand a year net income, and thinking about taking risks to go big. Like, we're going to have 60 employees. We're going to have 20,000 square feet, 30 grand a month rent. We were on our way. And I found it was working. I finally had a system that was working, and I no longer had to sell. That was the main thing.
Yeah.
I had salespeople selling, and everything was running, and I could see the profitability was going up.
And then you start to get close to your goal of selling the company. You renege on, this is before COVID. This is like 2016 or so, and interest rates start to creep up.
I think it was 2018 when we were like, hey, we hit 10 million in revenue. We made
Yeah.
$2 million. I can sell this bitch for $10 million. I'm out. That was my goal. Get it up to 10 million. I'm selling it. My goal was just, I want to start a business and have an exit. So I was there in 2018, and then interest rates shot up. Yeah, we went from making $2 million with like a $10 million valuation to making $1 million. And now the goal was sell for 10 million. I'm not selling for 5. So I got to sign back up to rebuild this thing.
And there was an 18-month sprint between that and actually COVID. And I remember the phone call that we had on March 13th of 2020, when you're like, you called me and you're like, dude, does this mean I have to use my motorhome as a dwelling so I can drive my postage to the post office?
Yeah,
this is ridiculous. What does this mean, right?
I forgot about that snafu. Like, the snafu in 2018 took business from 10 million to 5 in revenue. It got cut in half, and I had to rebuild. Well, then I rebuilt it up to 20 million, and then COVID happened. I'm like, oh crap, it's coming apart at the seams again. And we went from 60 employees to 30 in one day. I furloughed 30 people, and I didn't have any plans to bring them back. Like, I was like, we're going to have to get real lean and mean again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
But interest rates stayed low, which meant that the mortgage industry stayed booming during COVID.
yes,
And
yeah,
people were doing refis on their house because they were spending more time at home.
And home improvement
And
loans.
home improvement loans were going out the door. So all
but
of
3 months later, I bring all the employees back, and
your
I'm
clients were
my
doing well.
revenue's skyrocketing
Yeah.
now.
And then you
Yeah,
get to the point where you're shopping for a potential, the sobering reality is that you've got a long haul ahead of you to rebuild. But then you're like, all right, let's do this with gusto and build the business back. And then you get to where 2021, 2022, you're killing it. You're making double what you were making before, at least if memory serves. And then
yeah.
you find a buyer for the business and spend, 6 months or 8 months negotiating the sale? It was a period of time. There was,
Yeah, I mean, I hired our first business broker, paid him a bunch of money, and he never found me a buyer. And 6 months went on there. And then I'm like, something's wrong. So I fired him, hired another business broker who had a list of people that bought printing and direct mail companies. He sent the offer out. I had 5 offers the first week.
wow.
So the first business broker was bad, didn't know what he was doing. He didn't have the right list, he didn't have the list of buyers. So it was interesting. He was a better guy, smarter, sharper, better presentation. But the other guy had the list of buyers. That was pretty crucial because as soon as they
Sounds like the second guy was a gondolier.
yeah,
He knew how to communicate. Maybe
Yeah.
there's something to that.
And then all during the time you had your house up on the hill, and then you moved down to the valley and you buy what you had told me for years was the dream house, which is Hawk Ranch, right? That's public knowledge.
Yeah.
And you've got dual wedding venues now at Hawk Ranch. You got 40 acres there in downtown Murrieta, and it's a beautiful location, and it's so big that when you're on that property, the house is really central to. It's away from 2 streets that really aren't that busy at all, and pretty far away from downtown to where you can't hear anything. I can't hear anything when I'm on your property.
Yeah, it's silent. Yeah.
And it's perfectly square. It seems like a perfectly square area. And then so you have Hawk Ranch. Then now you've got your Airbnb business and your stuff that you're doing up at Lake Elsinore, your place in Montana, the Ferraris, the Ferrari and the Rolls. I mean, I've never been in a Rolls Royce before I came down and was cruising with you. And they're a lot for sure, but they're not crazy expensive beyond what you would think of as like a really, really nice car. But oh my God, they're so comfortable.
They're nice, huh?
I couldn't believe it. And you got those big rims with the low profile tires. Can't even feel it because the suspension on the Ghost is just ridiculous. So if we look at that of like, all right, now you've had your exit, you've built the company, you sold it, you're financially independent, you can travel and go and do what you want to do. Talk about, like, is it worth it? Was it worth what you had to do, the years of spending late nights at the office every night after night after night for decades to be able to do it? And now that you're able to come and go as you please and do what you want to do, like, how are you feeling about kind of the reconciliation of all the work that you did juxtaposed against the freedom that you enjoy today?
I was just thinking about when you said that, what just hit me really hard was, when do you give up on the dream? Okay. If you have a dream at 18 years old, someday I'm going to own a brand new Ferrari. I will pay cash for it. It will be Rosa Corsa red with tan interior. And that dream's at 18. And 29, you got 4 kids and you're making 200 grand a year and taking home 120 and trying to figure out how the hell am I going to buy a $300,000 car cash, making good money where everyone tells me I'm doing well. I'm a 6-figure income in my 20s, but you start to do them. So, do you give up on the dream then in your 20s? Because, I just got married and I had all these kids and now I can afford a Ferrari. Like, that'd be a crappy excuse, right? Or do you give up on your dream at, I'm going to own this Ferrari before I'm 40 and 39 years old, 35, you're a multimillionaire, and 40, I'm filing a bankruptcy.
Well, and that car didn't come easily because it was the only one that was available in North America before COVID shut down from the factory, and you actually had to pay over asking in order to be to jump the line of something like 100, 110 guys that were on a wait list that had already put money down on the F8 Tributo Spider, and you jumped the line and got it. You were the last one in and the first one to get one.
It's funny, in Ferrari Club, they always ask me, Jeff, this is a common question. Is this your first Ferrari? right? That's a common question at Ferrari Club. And I'm like,
Gosh.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I'm driving the hell out of it. I
Yeah.
got 5,400 miles on it, more miles than you have driven your car over 20 years. I've driven it 2 years because I bought mine to drive it.
Yeah.
And then they always say to me, that's a pretty nice car for your first Ferrari.
I bet.
An
I
F8
bet.
Spider,
Yeah.
$435,000 car. Because most of the guys in Ferrari Club, they're driving used $150,000 cars, and they're not super wealthy. They're car guys, and they're above average income. But what I've learned about Ferrari Club, these guys just love the car, the brand. They did everything they could do to get one, but they might have paid like 150, 125 used. They have a 15-year-old Ferrari, and they're cool and they're fast. But it's funny when I say this is my first Ferrari, but they don't understand, dude. I waited 30
Yeah.
years.
You waited 30 years.
I could have had some beat up used one, but dude, that wasn't the goal, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the goal to go finance a used Ferrari.
Yeah.
It was like, so I set that goal, and it's like refused to give up on it. So when you say, was it all worth it? Well, it had to be, or else I would have had to let go of all my goals. And what a sad day that would be to just give up on, I want to have a couple houses that are paid for, one in Montana and one here in Murrieta, and maybe a ranch. And I've got that. I got two badass houses that are paid for. What if I would have given up on that when I went bankrupt in '08 and just never like pursued it? Because what do they say? Success is just it's pursuing the worthwhile dream and goal. It's the pursuit seems to be success, not necessarily when you arrive. But if I would have given up on the goal, dude, there's no more pursuit. And that's sad, right?
That's right.
Like,
yeah, you're not hungry for anything. You're not chasing anything. You have no reason to get out of bed in the morning.
what I'm just struggling with now is now what, right? Like now I hit it all. That was like a little bit of a, wow, I never thought I'd be in grieving mode of like, I didn't lose my company and all those friends and employees. I sold it. They paid me for it, but it feels like grief. It feels like kind of like something died or you lost something, because that was my life. And now it's like figuring out this next chapter and setting some new goals. And I've got a couple, I'd like to own an airplane and have it in a hangar. That's a pretty good goal. But yeah, I'd like to help some other people grow their business and take them along for the ride of their life, growing a business and having an exit. A friend of mine told me a day, he goes, Jeff, you had an exit on your business. That's like a Super Bowl ring. I'm like, that's kind of cool, man. I'm going to use that. Like you have not everybody in the NFL gets a Super Bowl ring. When you have an exit,
That's right.
An 8-figure one, it's, there's a lot of people that have won the Super Bowl that have Super Bowl rings, but it's bigger than just being in the NFL and playing for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that's cool. I kind of like that. It whatever.
So if you look at moving forward of saying, okay, you had one very successful business that made tons of money, incredible lifestyle, and it ended in bankruptcy. Then you had another very successful business that made millions of dollars and it ended very well with an 8-figure exit and financial independence and personal freedom and worldwide travel and Ferraris and Rolls Royces. Now, when you look at, okay, now it's all of a sudden I'm only 52. It's not, gosh, I'm 52 and I haven't been to Europe. It's now I'm only 52. I've been to Europe. I've traveled as much as I've wanted to travel. I've got all the material things that I want. My kids are still young and occupying residence, on the ranch and spending time with the family. You've got Ends Footwear as a business. You've got the business with your brother. What are you working on now? How can people get a hold of you? And what are the projects that are occupying your attention and your interest right now?
Well, my brother and I partnered up. We'd never been in business together, and we're pretty close and brothers and have different skill sets. So we thought, let's do something together. So we decided to start doing business consulting. So we started a company called growmyprofit.com. And I've been filming a lot of videos of all my experiences, my sales, marketing, legal, admin, selling the business, raising capital. I've been filming a lot of videos and starting to go on podcasts like this, kind of promoting that my ideal thing is I'd like to have a handful of businesses that I have some ownership in. And let's say your business is doing $1 to $5 million a year, and it's not going to sell for enough for you to retire. So I want to go in and help them take those businesses like 1 to 5 million to 10 to 50 million. So they could have a big exit. And I want to do it all for free. I just want to have some ownership. So when it sells, I get paid and maybe take some distributions. I'm looking at doing business consulting. I'm not out there charging $1,000 an hour. I don't want to trade time for dollars. Even I don't care how much money it is. I'm not interested in that. I'd really like to just have some ownership and help people take their businesses from small business. I mean, small, 1 to 5 million is probably our target, up to 10 to 50 million, because that's a big difference in exit value and income. That's life changing,
That's right.
That's $60,000 Italy vacation. That's $400,000 Ferrari. That's not, a weekend in Vegas and a Kia Optima,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Serious, So I want to, that's really what I'm focused on right now. I mean, yeah, I've got the little wedding venue, our wedding venue. God, we did 50 weddings last year. We're going to do 100 next year. It makes a little bit of money. It's fun, but it's more like a lifestyle business. It's not going to doesn't really excite me that much. It's only so many Saturdays in a year you can sell a wedding. And I don't want to go own 10 wedding venues. I'm just not getting that interested in that. So anyways, I got my little wedding business. I got my Airbnb business. I'm taking a lot of trips. I got a lot of cars. I go on a lot of drives. I hang out with some really cool people. But as far as work, I'd really like to partner with a handful of businesses that really could use my experience on how to grow a sales team, how to drive marketing, how to get financing, how to sell a company, how to fix operations, how to add new products and new revenue streams to a business. I've done all that like 3 times in 3 different industries. So I feel like I got a lot to lend somebody and help them. So that's my next deal. Is I'm excited to, kind of partner with some people and share in profits and really help some other businesses grow. But I don't want to be there 50 hours a week like I was at my own businesses.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my next.
So the website is growmyprofit.com, right?
Yep.
And then how can people find you on Instagram?
Grow My Profit has an Instagram channel, but Jeff, my email address is just jeff@growmyprofit. My brother's managing all the social media, so I apologize. I don't know right off the top of my head, but if you go jeff@growmyprofit.com, you'll find Instagram, YouTube videos. It's all out there.
Twitter,
I just don't have
LinkedIn, all that stuff will be connected.
Memorized right now.
Okay. No, that's good. And I'm very grateful, obviously, to David Bush for making the introductions, and hope that you guys do well and that he continues to prosper in his business out in Iowa. And it's interesting to see you guys working together. I'll be watching to see how that dynamic turns into clients who are able to have you come on board and help them grow and ramp their sales. So exciting for that.
In those 2 years that I was dead broke, in between being so successful in business and then being bankrupt, just in shock that I can't believe this happened to me. I didn't think this could be possible. Like I was rolling, and there were 2 things that were said to me over about a 2-year period. And there was a few weeks where I was literally couldn't get out of bed. I would wake up in tears, in fear, because I got no money, wife and 4 kids, and just so angry that all this happened. And it really wasn't my fault. The market changed and it disintegrated. Like 90% of the business went away overnight. I couldn't really plan for that. It was kind of the worst catastrophe in the mortgage business that ever happened. But anyways, 2 things. And one of them was you, and one was another friend of mine. And I'll never forget when you said, "Hey, Jeff, when I did credit card collections, we always knew the guy was going to be broke for a year, so we wouldn't call him for about 18 months. But like he'd be broke for a year, but 18 months later, we'd call him. That son of a gun would have money again, and we'd go get the collection account paid." Dude, for some reason that meant something to me. I was like, okay.
So you could see like a light at the end of the tunnel.
18 months, but I'm not going to be broke the rest of my life. For some reason, I thought I was just it was over. Like it was over. It was so sad. So you gave me some huge hope, and I appreciate that, because I'll never forget that. And then the one other thing I heard one day, I woke up and I called a friend of mine. I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't get out of bed. Like I'm crying. I just don't know what to do." And he goes, "Well, Jeff, sounds like you're going through hell. So if you're going through hell, just don't stop.
Just don't stop."
And I'm like, "Oh, like I'm gonna burn if I." He goes, "Yeah, if you sit in bed crying, you're gonna burn, dude. Like burning in hell. So you need to, if you're going through hell, just keep walking on there." Those are the 2 things I remember in that 2-year period. That was like a horrible time for me.
Yeah.
But those 2 things, like kind of like resurfacing, giving me just enough hope to go rebuild another time. It's like Jim Rohn, one of my most favorite speakers, Jim Rohn, the speaker, not the sports guy. He used to say, people would say, "Hey, what are you, like really good at?" He goes, "Well, what I'm really good at is starting over."
Starting over.
And I'm like, dude, I'm that way too. I think I had to start over like 3 or 4 times, but hey, whatever it takes, right?
That's right.
If the 4th time you start over and you're 49 years old and you finally get your Ferrari in your house and you've got a comfortable, bulletproof, financial fortress. That's okay. What if it's 59? What if it's 69? I don't know. At least this whole time I've been striving for something. I've been pretty happy. I wasn't depressed and angry at the world. And, I think that's a God thing too, right? We got to have faith.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Your faith and your resilience and willingness to come back. You have met and spent some time with some pretty high profile people. I mean, I know you were with Manny Koshbin here a couple of weeks ago. You've been with Jay Abrams.
Jay Abraham. Yeah,
Jay Abraham, the marketing guy.
Yeah.
I've spent a couple times meeting with you with Oren Klaff down in Encinitas, author of Pitch Anything. And what has spending time with these guys that are worth 50, 100, 200 million, $500 million, $1 billion, what has that done for your psyche in how you look at the rest of your life and your future and your career and all that stuff?
One thing is that you start accepting the fact that you're a little weird. You're a little different because all these guys are so freaking weird. Dude, billionaires, every billionaire I met, I'm like, dude, you think so different. You say the weirdest things and you're like, you think different. And I always thought there was something wrong with that because we all want to fit in. But it's like you walk away from those guys and you're like, dude, these guys don't fit in at all. They're complete renegades. They're kind of weird and they're even a little crazy. So it's okay to be crazy. It's okay to be a little weird. If you're going to fit in, you're probably not going to be really, really successful. You're going to fit in and be middle class. That's middle class is middle class, right? And that's okay if you're happy there. But that's one thing getting around these guys. You see that they think different and you see that they don't have a real big place for fear in their life. I can still get really scared at times. I won't take big risks. Like I was just listening to Manny yesterday and they're like, how much did you lose? What was the worst property you ever bought and sold where you lost money? And he said, I lost $5 million on one property. I'm like, dude, I might have stopped at that point. I don't know if I have risk tolerance.
And then he laughs. He laughs. He goes,
he laughs. And he goes, but when you come to this country from Iran from war and you're living in your car, losing $5 million is like not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So he just has like very little fear.
Yeah.
Like fear is a big barrier. A lot of people don't try real hard or do anything big because they're scared. They're comfortable. They don't want to go outside their comfort zone. So when I meet these people, I go, God, these people, they're not scared. They don't let fear stop them. And they're a little strange. So it's okay to be a little different,
That's so great.
Well, thank you. I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour here for us, but we really appreciate you.
This was so fun. I mean, we've done it 100 times without
gosh.
a camera, but now we finally just put a camera to the conversations we've been having for decades.
We're so blessed to have had you on this conversation and on this podcast today, and we look forward to seeing the next phase, the next chapter in the Jeff Bush and the Jeff Heilman projects. Both of you see what's going on and where God takes you.
Next time I have to get my wife on and do from the wife's point of view.
I love that. Tiffany is a guest.
Because that's a whole nother deal.
She has an open invite.
Yeah.
The wife of the up and down, the sawtooth, CEO, right? Up, down, up, down. She had to live through all that. All these women that are like, oh, you have it so good. You have your beautiful Rolls Royce, your jewelry.
Geez.
She's like, well, you can have all this if you take all the other crap we went through, like foreclosure on the house, bankruptcy, all, you got to take it all. You don't just get the good parts, right? So she lived through it. And didn't have a lot of say in it, right? So she's like depending on me. So I always think that'd be interesting since you guys are doing the show together. It's always interesting. The wife of a serial entrepreneur and what she had to deal with.
Exactly right. Easy. Well, Jeff, thanks for being here. Any parting words for life, words to live by or words to life that you'd like to leave with our audience before we adjourn?
Set a dream and a goal and don't give up. Make yourself unstoppable, and just understand, give yourself some time. Like give yourself some patience. It doesn't always happen when we want it to, but you're going to have major setbacks, but keep that ahead of you. Cause I think that's what life's about is just having, dreams, goals and moving towards them. It's what creates like a lot more happiness. And, even if it doesn't go your way, you still don't give up, keep going. That's the thing. Everybody I know that's made it big had major setbacks. So
really, if you pretty much exclusively like every single one of them.
Every single one. I don't know anybody's just like, unless they're trust fund baby, and handed 100 million, then they're usually drug addicts. They're in rehab. They had so much money given to them. They don't know what to do with it. And they're in rehab. So it's like everybody that is success tend to, kind of move towards that. So, and had some major setbacks, you know.
That's right. Well, and we've certainly experienced our share as well, and we appreciate seeing examples from our buddies like you who've gone on and overcome the setbacks. It's like everybody has setbacks, except some people overcome them, and when they do, they end up living an amazing life that just seems stratospheric compared to the also-rans who, for one reason or another, don't seem to get it done. So thank you for joining us, Jeff. Have a great rest of your day. Good workout, and we'll catch up with you this weekend, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.